When I moved into apartment 203, the real estate agent warned me about two things. The walls are thin, she said, and the elementary school next door can be noisy in the morning. Thin walls and noisy kids were a fair trade for cheap rent and a 10-minute train ride to campus, so I signed the contract without thinking twice. I should have paid more attention to what she didn't warn me about. Like dusk. And knocking. And children who never go home. The building was one of those tired two-story blocks you see all over suburban Japan, external corridors, metal stairs, paint peeling on the railings. On one side of the building was a narrow street. On the other side, separated only by a tall chain-link fence, stood the playground and gym of an old elementary school. In the mornings, I woke to the sound of the school bell and the shrill chorus of children doing radio calisthenics. At noon, I heard the lunch chime and the echo of announcements over tinny speakers. In the afternoon, the rhythmic thud of balls and the squeak of sneakers on asphalt. It was oddly comforting. Life, running on a schedule, even when mine didn't. The first time I heard the knocking was about a week after I moved in. I was at my small desk, pretending to study and actually scrolling on my phone with a cup of cheap convenience store coffee growing cold beside me, when two light knocks. Not on my door, but further down the outdoor corridor. Pause. Then the sound of small feet shuffling. Another knock. Another door. Another pause. I froze and listened. I hadn't memorized which rooms were occupied yet, but I'd seen shoes in front of 201 and 205, and laundry on the balcony of 206. People lived here. People who should answer their doors. Yet no one did. The corridor stayed silent between knocks, no chains rattling, no doors sliding, no voices saying who is it. Just knock, knock. Shuffle. Knock, knock. Shuffle. Then, just outside my own door, the footsteps stopped. Silence pressed against the thin wall. My heart began to pound. I waited for the knock. Instead, I heard a child's voice. Hi. Thin. Perfectly polite. Are you going home now? It was so close it could have been right behind my ear. I almost answered out of reflex. Instead, I swallowed and stayed still, suddenly aware of how loud my breathing was in the tiny room. The silence stretched. Then the footsteps continued, past my door to the end of the corridor, down the metal stairs. The building's front door never opened. No adult voice called. No parent said, "We're leaving." The sound simply stopped. I told myself it was just a neighborhood kid playing some weird game. Maybe he was shy. Maybe he ran down the stairs quietly. Maybe a parent was waiting at the bottom. I went back to my phone. I didn't study. The knocking came again the next evening. And the evening after that. Always around the same time, just after sunset, when the sky was still faintly blue and the school grounds had emptied, and the teacher on duty blew a whistle to tell any remaining kids to go home. The bell rang. The whistle blew. Distant shouts of "see you tomorrow" floated over the fence. Then, 10 or 15 minutes later, knock, knock. Shuffle. Knock, knock. Shuffle. Same pattern. Same timing. No one ever answered. And just outside my door, the same question, every time. Are you going home now? The more I listened, the more I realized the voice didn't sound like it was talking to the person in the room. It sounded like it was talking to itself. As if the question were just a broken piece of script, played over and over. On the fourth night, curiosity won. The knock started at the far end of the corridor. 1. 2. Pause. Footsteps. 1. 2. Pause. As the sound moved closer, I stood and tiptoed to my door, heart hammering. I didn't open it. I just put my eye to the peephole. The glass warped the corridor into a fisheye tunnel. At first, I saw no one. Then, from the edge of the lens, a small shape walked into view. A boy. Maybe 8 or 9 years old. He wore the standard yellow cap most elementary schools require for the walk to and from school, a dark blue Ranocero backpack, and a pale, slightly dirty face. From above, through the peephole, I could only see the top of his cap and shoulders. He stopped at the door of 201 and raised his hand. Knock, knock. He waited. No one came. He shuffled to 202. Knock, knock. Wait. He moved to stand in front of my door. All I could see was the round top of the yellow cap, directly below the peephole. He didn't knock. He simply titled his head slightly, as if listening. Are you going home now? He asked. Up close, the voice sounded wrong. Not just because it was too calm. There was a tiny delay between the words. Are you going home now? As if he were repeating a sentence he'd memorized in parts. I held my breath. For a second, I had the horrible sensation that he knew I was there, on the other side of the door, watching. My lungs tightened. Then he turned away and continued down the corridor. I watched him reach the end, turn left, and disappear from the peephole's distorted circle. No front door creaked. No fence rattled. No small shoes clattered down the stairs. Just silence. After a long minute, I opened my door and stepped outside, telling myself it was to get fresh air. The corridor was empty. The air smelled faintly of cooking oil and laundry detergent. I walked to the railing and peered down. The street was quiet. No child in a yellow cap. No parent. No one. Behind me, the doors of the other apartments stayed shut. I suddenly realized I'd never actually seen any of my neighbors in the corridor at dusk. In the morning, whenever I left for my 9 a.m. class, the building was busy, people going to work, to school, to part-time jobs. We nodded at each other, eyes half awake, earbuds in. In the evening, people must have been home. There were lights under doors, TVs through walls, smells of dinner. But no one ever opened their door when the child knocked. I wondered if they, too, stood behind their peepholes, watching. Or if they pretended not to hear. A few days later, on my way back from the convenience store, I passed the school gate just as kids were leaving. A group of boys in yellow caps ran laughing past me, their backpacks bouncing. One of them brushed my arm. Sorry, he shouted, bowing while still running. It was the same kind of cap as the boy in the corridor. The same uniform. For the first time, I realized I had no idea which school he was from. I'd never seen him in daylight. On a sudden impulse, I stepped into the small office by the gate, where a woman in her 50s sat behind a counter. Excuse me, I said. I live in the apartment building next door. There's a boy who sometimes lingers in our corridor after school. I wondered if maybe he's a student here. I'm a little worried he's not going home. Her expression tightened. What does he look like? She asked. Maybe 3rd or 4th grade, I said. Yellow cap, dark blue backpack. Short. Very polite. He knocks on doors and asks if we're going home. Her mouth pressed into a line. Does he say anything else? She asked. I thought. No, I said. Always the same thing. Are you going home now? She exhaled slowly. I see, she said. Thank you for telling us. But I don't think you need to worry. Really? I asked. He's out pretty late. Around sunset. She glanced at the fence, toward the apartment building. Have you seen his face clearly? She asked. I hesitated. Only from above, I admitted. Through the peephole. He looks normal, I guess. She gave me a sad, tired smile. If you see him again, she said, please don't invite him in. And don't follow him if he asks you to go with him. Cold skated down my spine. I never said he asked me to go anywhere, I said. She froze for a heartbeat. Then her smile turned bright and brittle. Right, she said. Of course. Thank you for being concerned about our students. As I left, I passed a bulletin board near the entrance. Among the usual posters, PTA flyers, safety campaigns, lost and found notices. One small laminated photo caught my eye. A boy in a yellow cap, smiling stiffly at the camera, holding a certificate. He looked a lot like the child I'd seen in the corridor. Beneath the photo, in small letters, in memory of Sakurai Yuto. Always walking home with a smile. I stared at the dates beneath his name. He had died 5 years ago. On a day in autumn. Hit by a car on his way home from school. Just before sunset. My mouth went dry. That night, the knocking started later than usual. I tried to ignore the bulletin board, to tell myself many kids looked alike in those standard uniforms. I failed. When I heard the first light knocks at the far end of the corridor, my heart dropped into my stomach. Knock, knock. Shuffle. Silence. Knock, knock. Closer. I sat rigid at my desk, eyes fixed on the door. This time, I didn't look through the peephole. I just listened. Outside 201, knock, knock. Outside 202, knock, knock. Of course, everyone stayed silent. Then, outside my door. No knock. Just breath. I heard it, faint and uneven, as if someone had just been running. For the first time, he said something different. Big brother, the voice whispered. Are you going home now? My whole body went cold. He'd never called me that before. I hadn't told anyone in the building I had a younger brother back in my hometown. That NII-chan was a word I actually missed hearing sometimes. He shouldn't have known. I stared at the door. On the other side, something small shifted its weight. If you're not going home, the boy said, come with me instead. The words were polite. The tone was wrong. Too flat. Like a recording played slightly too slow. Outside is dangerous, I managed to say, voice cracking. You should go home. Silence. Then, very softly, he laughed. It was a child's laugh. But it sounded like he had learned it from hearing others, not from feeling anything. I can't, he said. I was going home. I never got there. My throat closed. Go away, I whispered. Please. He hummed, a tuneless, almost thoughtful sound. Okay, he said finally. I'll ask someone else. Footsteps shuffled away. I didn't move for a long time. When I finally slept, I dreamed of walking up the corridor barefoot, my own small hand reaching for door after door, knocking and asking the same question, over and over, my voice thin in the twilight. Are you going home now? The next few days, I left the apartment as much as possible. Early classes. Extra time in the library. Part-time work. Convenience stores with 2 bright lights and canned coffee. Anywhere but 203 at dusk. It worked, for a while. One evening, forced home by a forgotten textbook, I climbed the stairs just after sunset. The corridor was dim. No one else outside. As I fumbled for my keys, I noticed something taped to my door. A yellow paper. No, an old, faded safety flyer from the school, carefully smoothed out and stuck at my eye level. The illustration showed a child in a yellow cap holding up a hand at a crosswalk. Big letters read, "Let's go home together safely." Someone had written in pen beneath it. Big brother in 203. Walk with me. My keys slipped from my fingers. They hit the concrete with a sound that was much too loud in the empty air. Behind me, at the far end of the corridor, a small figure stepped out from the shadows. Same cap. Same backpack. Same uniform. He was facing me. For the first time, I saw his face fully. He looked just like in the photo on the bulletin board. Down to the stiff, careful smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Except his eyes now were wrong. Too dark. Too wide. As if the light from the corridor lamps had decided to avoid them. He raised his hand. Not to wave. To point at me. Are you going home now? He called. His voice sounded bigger than it should have, echoing off the walls. I backed up until my spine hit my door. "I live here," I said. "This is already my home." He tilted his head. As he did, I heard the faint, awful crunch of something broken that had healed wrong. "This isn't home," he said. "Home is further. Home is past the road." I was going there. He took a step toward me. His shoes didn't make a sound on the concrete. "You're like me," he said. "You don't go home either. You stay and stay and stay in the same place." Tears stung my eyes. "I can go home any time," I lied. He laughed softly. "If you could, you would have," he said. "You wouldn't be here alone, in a box, listening to other people's walls." He took another step. The corridor seemed to stretch with him, the distance between us never shrinking, and yet my chest tightened as if he were inches away. "Come with me," he said. "If we go together, the cars will stop." For a second, I saw it clearly. The narrow street in front of the school. The crosswalk. The car that didn't slow down enough. The yellow cap rolling like a dropped ball. I saw myself at 8, tugging at my mother's hand on the way back from cram school, complaining about homework. I saw the boy. And I saw the part of me that was tired. So tired of this tiny apartment and the call center job and the endless scroll and the cheap food and the way tomorrow always looked like yesterday. A walk would be easy. A walk would be nothing. All I had to do was step away from the door. My hand brushed the key still in the lock. Metal. Cold. Real. I closed my fingers around it. "No," I said. The word came out quietly. It still surprised me. The boy frowned. His face flickered. For a second, his features blurred, like a photo on a screen with bad reception. "Why?" he asked. My voice shook. "Because I can still go home," I said. "Even if I haven't yet." "You can't. You already tried." His eyes widened. Not with anger. With something like disappointment. "You sound like the teacher," he said softly. "She said I should have looked both ways. She said if I had waited, I'd still be here." He blinked slowly. "But I am still here," he said. "And it's boring." He took one more step. He was close now. Too close. The air around him was cold, and smelled faintly of rain on asphalt and exhaust fumes. "Come on," he whispered. "If you come, the others will come too. We'll all go home together." Behind him, for a heartbeat, I saw silhouettes in the corridor. Smaller shapes. Other children. Blank faces under yellow caps. Waiting. Hungry. Tired of walking alone. I twisted the key and slammed my weight backward. The door flew open. I stumbled inside and kicked it shut. His hand hit the wood an instant later. Not hard. Just enough to make a hollow, child-sized thud. "Big brother," he said, right against the door. "Are you going home now?" I slid the chain on with shaking hands. "Not with you," I said. Silence. Then, very softly, "Maybe tomorrow." The footsteps moved away. Knock, knock. At 205. "Are you going home now?" Knock, knock. At 206. "Are you going home now?" I shut my eyes. I didn't open the door again that night. The next morning, I went back to the school office. The same woman sat at the desk. This time, when she saw me, she didn't pretend not to know. "You saw him properly?" she asked. I nodded. "Did he ask you to go with him?" "Yes." "And you refused?" "Yes." She exhaled, shoulders sagging. "Good," she said. "That makes you one of the lucky ones." I swallowed. "What happened to the unlucky ones?" I asked. She hesitated. "We don't have proof," she said. "Only patterns. Students who used to live in your building. Adults too." People who vanished, or stepped in front of trains, or sat down in bathtubs and never got up again. Always after talking about a child in a yellow cap who wanted to walk home with them. She looked out the window, toward the fence and the apartments beyond. He always asks so politely, she said. And for people who don't feel they have a home to go back to, it's a tempting invitation. Why doesn't anyone do something? I demanded. A priest, or someone. She smiled without humor. We tried, she said. We held memorials. We burned incense. We put up safety posters. We even changed the traffic lights at the crosswalk. Still, at dusk, someone hears small footsteps in the corridor and a voice asking the same question. She shuffled some papers as if they could shield her from the weight of it. You can move, she said quietly. Students always move. New jobs, new campuses. If you leave, he might forget you. I thought of the flyer taped to my door. Of my name, written in a shaky child's hand. Will he? I asked. She didn't answer. I moved out at the end of the semester. Found another crappy apartment near a different station. My new walls are just as thin. There's no school next door. I still hear children sometimes, on trains, in parks, on YouTube videos people play too loud. I jump every time small knuckles tap on anything. I tell myself it's paranoia. I tell myself ghosts don't carry forwarding addresses. Sometimes, in that blurred space between awake and asleep, I hear it anyway. Knock, knock. The shuffle of small shoes. And a polite, patient voice asking from somewhere just beyond the door. Big brother, are you going home now? On good nights, I roll over and tell myself it's only a dream. On bad nights, I lie there and stare at the door handle, cold sweat soaking my pillow, knowing that as long as there are people like me, tired, alone, not sure where home really is, there will always be a child in a yellow cap, walking some corridor at dusk, looking for someone to walk with him the rest of the way. Someone who will finally say yes.